Here's the thing nobody's telling you straight up. That feeling you get when you walk into a room full of people and immediately want to leave? That knot in your stomach when someone asks how your weekend was, and you know they couldn't care less about the answer? That crushing sense that everyone around you is performing some elaborate theater that you never got the script for? That's not anxiety talking. That's your brain doing exactly what it's supposed to do. It's pattern recognition, it's bullshit detection, and it's working perfectly. You're at some office party or family gathering. Everyone's doing that performance. You know the one, the forced laughter that sounds like someone's being tickled against their will. The surface-level conversations that go absolutely nowhere, but somehow manage to drag on for 20 minutes. The weird social theater where everyone's pretending to care about things they obviously don't care about. Karen from accounting is telling the same story about her cat for the third time this month. Dave from IT is doing his whole funny guy routine that wasn't funny the first time. And there you are, standing there like you're watching aliens try to mimic human behavior based on a Wikipedia article they skimmed 5 minutes ago. You feel like you're the only one who can see how fake it all is. Like you're the only one noticing that nobody's actually connecting with anyone else. They're just bouncing scripted responses off each other like some kind of social ping pong match. And you're wondering, what the hell is wrong with you that you can't just play along like everyone else seems to be doing? So here's what I want you to think about. What if that discomfort you feel isn't your weakness? What if it's actually your strength? What if the problem isn't that you're socially anxious, but that you're emotionally intelligent enough to spot when people are running on autopilot? What if your inability to tolerate fake interaction isn't a disorder, but actually a sign that your emotional radar is functioning at a higher level than most people's? Let me tell you something that might sting a little, but needs to be said. Most social interactions in our culture are performance art. People aren't connecting. They're not sharing anything real. They're not even trying to understand each other. They're just going through the motions, following scripts they learned somewhere along the way, probably from watching other people follow the same damn scripts. And your brain, if it's worth a damn, is going to reject that fake stuff like a healthy immune system rejects poison. Carl Jung had this concept he called the persona. It's basically the mask we wear in public, the character we play to fit in with whatever social situation we find ourselves in. Jung said most people get so comfortable wearing the mask that they forget who they actually are underneath it. They become the performance. The mask becomes their identity. And when you're someone who values authenticity, when you can feel the difference between genuine connection and social theater, being around those people feels suffocating. It's like being the only sober person at a party where everyone else is wasted. The modern world rewards surface-level interaction. We've built entire social systems around avoiding real conversation. Think about it. When's the last time someone asked you how you're doing and actually waited for an honest answer? When's the last time you were in a group conversation where people were actually listening to each other, instead of just waiting for their turn to talk? When's the last time someone shared something real with you, something that actually mattered to them, instead of just recycling the same safe topics that everyone always talks about? We've created this culture where depth is uncomfortable and authenticity is risky. So people stick to the shallow end of the pool. They talk about the weather, sports, work drama, what they watched on Netflix. Safe stuff. Stuff that doesn't require them to actually reveal anything about who they are or what they care about. And if you're someone who craves real connection, someone who wants to talk about ideas and feelings and things that actually matter, You're going to feel like an alien in that environment. Susan Cain wrote about this in her work on introversion. She pointed out that our culture has what she called an extrovert ideal. We've decided that the person who talks the most, who seems the most comfortable in crowds, who can work a room like a politician campaigning for office, is the healthiest person in the group. We've made extroversion synonymous with mental health and social skill. But that's backwards thinking. Sometimes the person who's uncomfortable in the crowd is the only one paying attention to what's actually happening. Sometimes the person who doesn't want to make small talk is the only one who's interested in making real talk. Here's what they don't tell you in therapy or self-help books. Sometimes social discomfort isn't a bug in your system. Sometimes it's a feature. Sometimes feeling out of place means you're the only one in the room who's actually present, who's actually awake, who's not just sleepwalking through another meaningless social interaction. You're the only one who's not running on social autopilot. I've watched guys tear themselves apart because they can't relate to the surface-level conversations that most people seem to thrive on. They think something's wrong with them because they'd rather have one real conversation than 10 fake ones. They think they're broken because they can spot emotional dishonesty from across the room. They can tell when someone's smile doesn't reach their eyes. They can sense when someone's asking about their day just to fill silence, not because they actually care about the answer. These guys end up in therapy talking about social anxiety, when what they really have is pattern recognition that's working too well for their own comfort. They're like someone with superhuman hearing trying to enjoy a concert where everyone else is tone deaf. Of course it's going to be overwhelming. Of course it's going to be uncomfortable. But here's the thing about having that kind of emotional radar. It's exhausting. When you can feel the difference between someone who's genuinely happy to see you and someone who's just being polite, because that's what socially appropriate people do, every social situation becomes minefield navigation. When you can sense the underlying currents of what people are really thinking versus what they're saying, when you can feel the gap between their public persona and their private reality, every interaction becomes complex and layered and emotionally demanding. You start noticing things other people miss. You notice when someone says they're fine, but their body language is screaming that they're not fine. You notice when someone laughs at a joke, but their laugh is hollow and forced. You notice when people are performing happiness instead of actually feeling it. And once you start noticing these things, you can't stop noticing them. It's like someone pointed out that the word "the" appears in every sentence, and now you can't read anything without being hyper-aware of it. The Stoics understood this burden. Marcus Aurelius wrote about the weight of seeing clearly in a world where most people prefer comfortable illusions. He talked about how most people live in a kind of sleepwalk, going through the motions without ever really examining what they're doing or why they're doing it. They follow social scripts because the scripts are easier than thinking. They perform emotions because performance is safer than vulnerability. And when you're someone who thinks deeply, who feels deeply, being around people who are sleepwalking feels isolating and frustrating. Epictetus talked about how wisdom often comes with loneliness, because the more clearly you see reality, the harder it becomes to relate to people who are content living in denial. He said that the price of awareness is often alienation from those who prefer to remain unaware. And that's exactly what happens when you develop emotional intelligence in a culture that rewards emotional numbness. Here's what I want you to understand, and this is crucial. That isolation you feel, that sense that you're different from everyone else, that feeling like you're speaking a different language even when you're using the same words, it might not be social anxiety. It might be intellectual and emotional clarity. It might be your brain refusing to participate in collective delusion. It might be your emotional immune system rejecting social toxicity. Now here's where this gets heavy, and I need you to pay attention because this is where most guys get it wrong. If you don't learn how to navigate this gift properly, if you don't figure out how to exist in a world full of surface-level interaction without losing your mind or your soul, you're going to end up completely isolated. You're going to become that guy who sits in the corner judging everyone else, feeling superior and miserable at the same time. You're going to turn your emotional intelligence into emotional arrogance, and that's going to destroy any chance you have of meaningful connection. I've seen it happen over and over again. Smart guys, emotionally aware guys, who get so disgusted with fake social interaction that they just check out completely. They stop trying to connect with anyone. They convince themselves that they're above it all, that they're too real for this fake world, that everyone else is just too shallow to understand them, and they end up alone, bitter, and convinced that everyone else is the problem while they're the only enlightened person in a world of sheep. The thing about emotional intelligence is that it's a double-edged sword. Yeah, you can spot fake behavior from a mile away. Yeah, you can feel the difference between genuine interest and polite conversation. Yeah, you can sense when someone's being authentic versus when they're just going through the social motions. But if you can't figure out how to work with that awareness instead of against it, if you can't learn to navigate social situations strategically instead of just emotionally reacting to them, it becomes a prison instead of a superpower. Here's what happens when you don't learn to manage this properly. You start avoiding social situations altogether. You tell yourself you're just being selective, that you're waiting for authentic people, that you have standards and you're not going to lower them just to fit in. But really, you're just scared. You're scared of feeling that discomfort, that sense of being the only real person in a room full of actors. You're scared of the emotional exhaustion that comes from constantly having to filter fake interaction through your hypersensitive bullshit detector. So you start making excuses. You're too busy. You're tired. You have other priorities. You convince yourself that you're protecting your energy, that you're being wise by avoiding draining social situations. And maybe some of that is true, but you're also avoiding the discomfort of having to exist in a world that doesn't match your internal reality. And then you start to doubt yourself. You start wondering if maybe everyone else knows something you don't know. Maybe they're all having genuine fun, and you're the one who's broken. Maybe your ability to see through the performance is actually just cynicism. Maybe you're the problem. Maybe you're too critical, too judgmental, too intense. Maybe you should just learn to enjoy small talk and stop overthinking everything. So you try to force yourself to participate. You go to the parties. You make the small talk. You laugh at jokes that aren't funny. You pretend to care about things you don't care about. You put on your own mask and try to join the performance. And it feels like you're betraying yourself every time. It feels like you're putting on that same fake persona that everyone else is wearing, and it makes you sick. You feel like you're becoming the thing you can't stand. But here's what you're missing. Here's the piece that nobody explains to you when you're struggling with this. You're trying to solve the wrong problem. You're trying to fix your inability to tolerate fake interaction, when what you should be doing is learning how to navigate it without compromising your authenticity. The goal isn't to become comfortable with fake interaction. The goal is to become strategic about it. The goal is to learn how to exist in social spaces without taking on the emotional burden of everyone else's inauthenticity. The goal is to find ways to connect with people authentically, within the constraints of social situations that are inherently inauthentic. Here's what you need to do instead. And this is going to require a fundamental shift in how you approach social interaction. First, stop trying to fix yourself. You're not broken. Your discomfort with fake social interaction isn't a character flaw that needs to be corrected. It's pattern recognition. It's emotional intelligence. It's your brain doing its job. The problem isn't that you see through the bullshit. The problem is that you haven't learned how to use that ability strategically. Second, learn to navigate social situations with clear intentions instead of vague hopes. Instead of going into every social interaction hoping for deep connection and getting disappointed when you don't find it, go in with specific, realistic goals. Sometimes the goal is just information gathering. You're there to learn something about the people you're around, to understand the social dynamics, to pick up on things that other people miss. Sometimes the goal is networking. You're there to make contacts, to show your face, to maintain relationships that might be useful later. Sometimes the goal is just social maintenance. You're there to keep existing relationships from deteriorating, to show people that you're not completely antisocial, to fulfill social obligations that matter to people you care about. When you stop expecting authentic connection from inauthentic situations, the interactions become less frustrating because you're not emotionally invested in outcomes that were never realistic in the first place. You can observe the social theater without feeling like you need to either participate fully or reject it completely. You can be present without being emotionally reactive. Third, find your people, but understand that they're probably not going to announce themselves with neon signs. The people worth connecting with are usually not the loudest people in the room. They're not going to be the ones dominating every conversation or performing the hardest for social approval. They're probably going to be the ones standing quietly, observing, maybe feeling just as out of place as you do. They might be the ones who look slightly uncomfortable in social situations, who seem like they're thinking more than they're talking, who give you the sense that there's more going on underneath the surface. The mistake most guys make is waiting for someone else to initiate authentic interaction. They stand around hoping that someone will approach them with depth and vulnerability, but that's not how it works. If you want authentic connection, you have to be willing to go first. You have to be willing to take the risk of being real with someone who might not be ready to be real back. But you have to do it strategically, not desperately. Fourth, accept that most social interaction is functional, not meaningful, and that's okay. Most of the time, people aren't trying to connect with your soul. They're not looking for deep philosophical conversations or emotional intimacy. They're just trying to maintain social cohesion, to keep the social machinery running smoothly, to avoid awkwardness and conflict. They're following scripts because the scripts work for basic human coordination. Once you accept that, you can participate in functional social interaction without taking it personally. You can make small talk without feeling like it's an assault on your authenticity. You can laugh at mediocre jokes without feeling like you're betraying your intelligence. You can ask people about their weekend without expecting them to share their deepest fears and dreams. And here's the paradox that nobody talks about, the thing that changes everything once you understand it. When you stop needing social interaction to be deep and meaningful all the time, when you stop being frustrated by surface-level conversation, when you stop judging people for being fake or shallow, you actually become better at social interaction. You become more relaxed. You become more present. You become more genuinely likable. And ironically, that's when real connections start to happen. People can sense when you're judging them for being inauthentic. They can feel when you're frustrated with them for not being deep enough, when you're impatient with their small talk, when you're looking down on them for following social scripts. And that makes them uncomfortable. which makes them even more fake, which creates this negative feedback loop where everyone gets more and more inauthentic to protect themselves from your judgment. But when you accept people as they are, when you meet them where they are instead of where you think they should be, when you participate in their social reality without judgment, suddenly the interactions become easier. People relax around you, they feel safer, and sometimes, when they feel safe enough, they'll drop the mask and let you see who they really are underneath. Hey, look, here's the bottom line. And this is something I wish someone had told me 20 years ago when I was struggling with the same damn thing. You can keep telling yourself you have social anxiety, keep trying to fix something that isn't actually broken, keep going to therapy to talk about why social situations make you uncomfortable. Or you can accept that you see things other people don't see, feel things other people don't feel, and learn how to use that as the advantage it actually is. The world needs people who can spot authenticity and call out performance. It needs people who won't settle for surface-level interaction, who demand more from human connection than just going through the motions. But it also needs those people to be functional, to be able to exist in social spaces without becoming bitter or isolated, or convinced that everyone else is hopeless. Your discomfort with fake social interaction isn't a bug in your programming, it's a feature. But like any powerful tool, you need to learn how to use it properly. You need to learn when to engage and when to observe. You need to learn how to find your people without writing off everyone else. You need to learn how to maintain your authenticity without becoming socially dysfunctional. The goal isn't to become like everyone else. The goal isn't to learn to love small talk and fake laughter and superficial conversation. The goal is to learn how to navigate the social world as it actually exists, not as you wish it existed, while still maintaining your integrity and your ability to connect with people who are worth connecting with. Most people are sleepwalking through their social lives, following scripts they never questioned, performing emotions they don't really feel, having conversations that don't actually mean anything to them. And yeah, that's frustrating if you're someone who wants more from human interaction. But some of those people are capable of more. Some of them are just scared or tired or protecting themselves the only way they know how. And some of them are waiting for someone like you to show them that it's safe to be real. So here's my question for you, and I want you to really think about this. Are you going to keep treating your emotional intelligence like it's a disorder that needs to be cured? Are you going to keep avoiding social situations because they don't meet your standards for authenticity? Are you going to keep waiting for the world to change to accommodate your need for depth and meaning in every interaction? Or are you going to start using your ability to see through the bullshit like the superpower it actually is? If this hits different for you, if this makes you realize that maybe you've been looking at this whole thing backwards, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. There's another video coming up next that's going to challenge how you think about something else you've probably been getting wrong about yourself. Until next time, and I'll see you in the next video.